Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. Today we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on the first episode of the newest spin-off Walking Dead series following DARYL DIXON in France. The Walking Dead, DARYL DIXON. The first episode being titled Jamais Perdu, which means the lost soul in French, and pardon my French, but I've never been really good at it, so if I mispronounce that, that's my bad. But this episode starts off with Daryl unconscious on the back of a small boat as it floats to the beaches of France. And don't worry, he does not get to France just because he floated on the back of a boat all the way across the ocean. But anyways, Daryl wakes up on shore and begins his journey in France, this newfound land, to Daryl, heading into an old boat, replenishing and gathering supplies and finding an old recorder, where he records himself talking about how he is going to try to find his way back home. But if he doesn't, to tell him that he tried. This is of course in reference to his search for Rick Grimes. After getting some supplies and his new weapon, a fishing spear of some sorts, he makes his way through the different landscapes of France in a similar shot to when Rick rode into Atlanta. I really like how this and the Dead City series both have that feeling of being a bit more open. Daryl gets to a building and heads inside to scavenge for some more supplies, but as he searches, the walkers in the building begin to wake up and go after him. But if you didn't know already, these are clearly not regular walkers. And we can see that as soon as they start going after Daryl, as the veins in their skin are sort of pulsating. And once Daryl takes one out, its blood that touches the floor burns, much like acid. And we see more of this when Daryl gets touched by one of the walkers. Its hand burns into his skin and leaves a mark. So immediately we have new variants, sort of like acid blood walkers or radioactive walkers. Of course, with any Walking Dead series, there is always an iconic intro to go with it. And the intro to this show goes on, and in it there is one shot of a book showcasing what is likely to be another variation of walkers. After the intro, we see Daryl still making his way through the area as a lady watches over him. This is the character known as Sister Isabel. He finds a sign written in French that reads Dieu vous aime, or however you pronounce it, which means God loves you. Daryl uses his book to translate it, a lot like how he used the sign language book to communicate with Connie, making it into a structure where he runs into a duel of what appears to be a grandfather and his granddaughter, Maribel and Gayami. The old man appears to be blind and they offer for some trade. But as soon as they are about to trade, a car pulls up with two men in it, wielding older styled weapons like muskets, bayonets, and flintlocks. A cool and different sort of style than what we are used to. These two are a part of a group known as the guerriers, which means warriors in English, and I promise I am trying my best to pronounce these French words. But anyways, they hold Daryl and the other two at gunpoint and start getting aggressive, which is where Daryl quickly takes one of them out as the girl takes the other one out. But Daryl did get hit during the little scuffle, so he asks them to hand him his medical bag, which is where they betray him as the old man removes the blindfold and whacks Daryl nearly unconscious. As they take all of his things, as a woman who is watching over Daryl earlier approaches and scares them off. Before Daryl is woken back up, he begins to have flashes of Judith and Carol before he left to search for Rick at the end of the final season of the original series. As he is woken up by a few nuns, they tend to his wounds and Daryl appears to take his first ever bath during the apocalypse, where we see almost all of the scars he has endured along the way. As he speaks with Sister Isabel, he mentions that he had a brother once, of course referencing Merle. After freshening up a bit, Isabel walks him around the sanctuary, which is just full of nuns, as they are a part of a religious group or sect that apparently stretches much further than this place's own walls, showcasing the weapons room that has loads of medieval styled weapons in it. As Daryl sits down to snack on some food, a boy across the courtyard begins copying his every move. This is Laurent, and and he eventually walks over to meet and speak with Daryl, where we sort of get the gist and idea that this kid seems rather intelligent. Meanwhile, Sister Isabel is speaking with the mother about how Daryl is quote-unquote the one. We then cut back to the duo from earlier that robbed Daryl, as a car pulls up to them on the side of the road, where we are introduced to the character known as Codron, presumably the leader of the Warriors, as he is here looking for the two men from earlier that Daryl and this girl killed, as one of them was his brother. And long story short, he basically interrogates the two and kills the old man, and is then led to the structure where Daryl and the girl took out his men, where he finds his brother obviously turned by now and has to put him down. Now we have an antagonist, as he is fueled by rage to go after Daryl for killing his brother, although it was actually the girl standing right there that did it. But of course she told them that it was all Daryl and that Daryl tried robbing them. All a lie. Now back at the nun sanctuary, Daryl tries picking the lock to the office with the radio in it, but before he can finish, he hears the noises of a walker close by, so he goes to investigate. He finds Laurent reading a book to a walker that is locked up inside of a cell, kept alive. This is later explained by the mother, as she explains that they have a belief for redemption for any soul, even the wicked. Now, obviously, all of this is just super weird, so Daryl is immediately ready to get out of there, so he starts taking weapons from the armory for himself, and then comes to find out the radio has actually been broken this entire time. All while Isabel is explaining to him that he is the one, the messenger that will deliver Laurent to the world. As she says, Laurent is set to be the new Messiah, the cure to a sick world. So I wonder if this is all just a religious thing for them, or if they're actually going to go the route of someone being a cure to the apocalypse, and Daryl has to escort him all over the place to a final destination to deliver the cure. A lot like Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us. Of course, Daryl doesn't believe in any of this and doesn't see it as his problem, so he just leaves. But as he is heading out, the warriors pull up to the sanctuary and make their way in to search for Daryl, so now everyone there is in danger. The nuns end up hiding Laurent and getting prepared, as they are as ready as they can be to defend themselves and their home. Codron and his men walk through the place, almost finding Laurent and then finding the walker and putting it down, which causes Laurent to disobey his orders and come out of hiding. So Codron says that they will be taking the boy with them and turning him into a warrior. And right on time, Daryl shows up and begins taking Codron's men out one by one, while the nuns and the other warriors fight themselves. Codron and Daryl eventually get into their own little scuffle, which doesn't last very long, as Daryl is thrown to the floor and nearly shot by Codron, but Isabel saves him and causes Codron to make a run for it. On his way out, Daryl chases after him and gets in 2 shots of his own, but either way, he is able to escape, to likely return another time. As the mother passes away, she states that Laurent is the cure to the sick world, again referencing this concept from earlier, either an actual cure or just a part of their religious beliefs, then acknowledging that Daryl may actually be the one. Now, with most of the nuns dead from the attack, only 2 remain, along with Laurent and Daryl, of course, as they sit around a campfire and remember their friends and sisters and sing a song. All while Daryl explains to Isabel that he was on board a ship with some bad people and it did not end well, which is how he actually got to France. The tiny little boat he was on the back of from the beginning of the episode was just a small part of it. He then agrees to take Laurent and the others on their journey as long as they take him to the harbor after, so that he can get aboard a ship and head back home himself. Which is where we actually cut straight to the harbor with the ship docked there already. As a woman walks aboard, Madame Genet, and she begins questioning the captain of the ship about the man who caused them so much trouble and escaped. Their test subjects are still intact, it seems, as they have a group of walkers tied up behind them. Maybe Genet is the reason these variants are showing up, possibly becoming a thing from all of her and her group's experiments. This group seems pretty powerful and high up, so I also wonder if they will end up being connected to the CRM and being the way that Daryl will find Rick. The captain ends up saying that the man who did all of this was knocked overboard and presumed dead. but his name was Dixon, so this is a start. So this is obviously the ship that Daryl was talking about earlier, as Janae sends her men to go and hunt Daryl down. The episode ends off. And overall, I thought this was a pretty good first episode. It was a bit of a slow burner, I guess, but it gave us an idea of what is going to be going on this season. The villains seem like they will likely be pretty intimidating and powerful, and the action looks very promising. All of it feels really new, being in a new part of the world and seeing what it's like here, and all of the new characters, environments, and of course, variant walkers. I think this show will really help explore and expand the character of Daryl, as now he's off on his own for the most part, so we will get to see more storytelling for him. A pretty easy 7 or 8 out of 10 for me, and I'm pretty excited to see where we go next week. Now, it's not related to the episode itself or my review of it, but I think the last minute decision to have this not be aired on Thursdays for AMC Plus members is pretty weird, but oh well. Hopefully I'm able to get some higher quality stuff from the episode to make these videos look better like the Dead City ones were, but anyways, of course, I would like to hear about your thoughts on this episode as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, don't forget to give it a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.